First, let me show you the Auto Pivot tool. This tool helps you to add pivot more easily to any object. Just select the node that you want to add pivot to, and then it'll add the pivot based on the DoD of the node. And then you can do all sort of stuff on the inspector panel. And all the transformation will happen based on the pivot you selected. As you can see, guys, with DoD turned on, if I add the center pivot, you can see it's in the center of the two objects as I inserted the pivot tool after the merge node. Now let's see if this works on transparent images. Take any pivot. As you can see, it's not working as expected. So we need to add an Auto DoD node before the Auto Pivot tool to fix this. And I could add this into the Auto Pivot tool, but sometime I saw for this node, Resolve crashes, so I didn't add this to my nodes. As you can see, this fixes the issue. So when you see a DoD-based tool not working properly, take an Auto DoD node before the node, and that should fix the problem. Next, if you have a messed up node flow like this, you can just select the nodes that you want to clean up, and then active any tool. Like if you want to separate all the text nodes, select one of the text node, and then shift-click the Auto Pivot icon, and it should move all the text node to that direction. And same for the any other tools. If you click the Motion Suite logo, it'll list all the possible color that you can set for the node. Let me show you. Now select the nodes and hit any color. This is so helpful when you have lots of nodes. The time you can see here is the time of your current composition, current time. With the Disable button, you can now disable selected tools all at once. And if you select both the disabled and the enabled once and hit this button, it'll just flip whatever state it has. Focus mode helps you to only show the inputs that are animated or have expression on it. Now, as you can see, these two inputs are animated by selecting the node. If I click the button, you can see in the inspector panel only showing the inputs that are animated. This spacing input is the clone of the tracking input. That's why this is here. Now, if you want to view all the inputs, you can select the node and press Ctrl and the button, and it'll show all the inputs of the node. With this lock tool, you can lock and unlock selected nodes all at once. If you select both the locked and the unlocked nodes and use this tool, then the state will be flipped. Locked nodes will be unlocked and the unlocked nodes get locked. Reset node helps you to reset nodes. This is specially made for the macro, cause there is no reset buttons for the macro, as we have the reset button for all the Fusion default nodes. By selecting the node, if you hit the reset button, it'll reset the node to default. Let me show you again. And this also works on any node. Let me show you. As you can see, I animated this text nodes. Now, by selecting the nodes, hit the reset button, reset all the nodes to default. Snap helps you to take snap of your selected viewer. So here is the to viewer, and now click any of the viewer and hit the snap button. And now it'll ask the name of your pic. And then for the first time, it'll ask the path where to save. As you can see, guys, the image has been saved to this location. Let's click on the viewer 2 and hit snap again. Pick a name for your snap. You can see the image has been saved. Now, if you want to load the image to the flow automatically, you can shift-click the snap button and then save the pic. And you can see the pic has been loaded. Now, if you want to change the folder for saving images, you can just Control-click the snap button and select the folder, and from now on it should save all the images to that folder. Blender now supports any image size. Let me give you a quick overview of Blender. I added this center indicator that helps you to see the bending point in the viewer. When you have X-axis enabled, the indicator moves in the X-axis, same for the Y-axis. Amount helps you to control the amount of bending. When I change the axis, you can see the indicator now moving on the y-axis. You can increase the subdivision and the amount as much as you want by entering the value manually. Connect tool helps you to connect one input with many input. Let me show you. Let's animate this text's size. Now select the tool that you have the input that other people will connect to and hit the button. It should list all the animated input from the selected tool, and now select the input that you want to publish. So I'm gonna select the size input. Now select the tools that you want to connect, and then Control and hit the button. Now you can see a warning, so you need to active any tool from the selected tool, and then Control and click the button. Now search the input that you want to connect. As you can see, the text field is auto-focused, so you can type anything without clicking on the text field. So I want to connect the size input. As you can see, the size input has connected with the main text one size. Now, if you change any size of any tool that are connected with the size, gonna affect all the connected size. Now I'm gonna show you how to connect many inputs with one published input. So you can see I animate the angle Z, and now I'm going to connect many input with this input. So let's first publish the angle Z by clicking the button. Now let's connect the angle Z with other tools angle Z. As you can see, all the input has connected with the angle Z. Now we will also connect the angle with other angle. As you can see, all the node angle is changing when I'm changing any connected tool angle. As you can see, I can also connect the angle Y with the angle Z. As you can see, angle Z and angle Y is connected with angle Z of the main tool. Let's connect the angle X also. As you can see, all the angle are connected to the same input. As you can see, text 2 and text 3 looks different, is because for the Z pivot. Now, if you want to add delay to this tools, it's not gonna work. Then you need to use the Connect tool differently. As you can see, the Delay tool didn't work. It's just offset the animation. Let me show you how to use the Connect tool to use the Delay tool or something else. So far, you see how to connect them with one spline. So if you change any of them, it'll affect all the value connected to that spline. That's why the Delay tool didn't work. It was just offsetting each spline, and because all the spline connected to same spline, the same spline just moved 3 times. Let's show you how to copy the spline that you can modify each of them. Then, if you want to use the Delay tool, you can do it. I reset the 2 node that I'm gonna use the Connect tool. So let's first select the main tool, and then click the Connect tool. And then select the other tool, and then this time Shift-click. Search the input that you are going to copy the spline to. As you can see, the size spline just copied over to the tools. Now you can change the value without affecting others. Let's connect the copy of angle. As you can see, if I change the value of one input, not affecting other. Selection tool helps you to select the tools based on the type of the node. Like if you select all the nodes, and then active any node like the text node, it will select the text nodes only. It'll be upgraded with more feature in the future. So here you can see that I have many text node. Now I'll show you how to use the wiggle tool. Now select all the tool that you want to apply the wiggle effect, and then hit the button. And remember, if you don't active any tool, then it'll give you a warning. So make sure you active any tool from the selected node. Now search and click on the reference input. Now you can see that on that input the wiggle modifier applied. And you can always apply the wiggle on the same input, and more control will be available in the next version. Let's add wiggle to the center input. So search the input by selecting the tools and then hit the input. As you can see the wiggle modifier now added to the center input. You can always go to the modifiers tab to change the effects. Active any tool that has a center input in it and then hit the orbit button. It'll produce a node for orbiting this node. Now let's take an ellipse tool and orbit around it. Connect the ellipse output to the orbit node. Now let's change the radius and see how it's working. As you can see now, you can animate the rotation input to get the orbit effect. And you can connect anything to the orbit node to orbit around the object. Now, if you want to orbit around the bottom left corner of the object, you can take an auto pivot tool to the object. And then selecting the auto pivot tool, hit the orbit button. Now it'll produce a orbit node. Now you can attach any object to the orbit node to orbit around the selected pivot. As you can see, you can do this with all the pivot. And if you move the object will follow the pivot. Now let's show you how to orbit around the image. Now, as it has no center input in it, you can just take Auto Pivot Tool and create Orbit Tool for this image. So let's add the bottom left corner pivot, but you can see the problem. So now you need to add an Auto Domain node to fix the pivot issue, and then use the Orbit Tool. Now selecting the Pivot tool, hit the Orbit node, and it'll create the Orbit node. Now you can connect any object, and it'll orbit around on that pivot, and you can do this for all the pivots. Let's quickly show you for the center pivot. Spin lets you spin on the pivot. It's also use the DOD. You can connect any object to the spin node, and that object will spin. Now let's show you pivot-based spin. Like if you want to spin an object from left bottom corner, you can click the Auto Pivot button, and a spin node will create that. Now any object attached to it spin based on the pivot selected. As you can see, guys, let's do it with the top right corner. And this will also work with transparent image, but you need to take an auto domain node. You can also use an image, but you need to take an auto domain node before the auto spin node. Stare helps you to make objects stare at other object. Remember, object should have the center and the angle input in it. Select the target object and hit the button, and then select the other tools and hit the button again. Now, if you move the objects, you can see all the objects are stared at the circle. Now we have Batch Key. This tool helps you to modify many inputs all at once. So here you can see each layer are separated from one another. Now if you want to add keyframes on canter input to all the node, this would take lots of time by hand. Now let me show you how you can easily do that. So select the tools and active a reference tool. Now hit the button. Now click on the center button by searching it. Now it added keyframes on the center input for all the nodes selected. Now let's say we want to remove keyframes at any time. Just select all the tools and then shift-click on the input that you want to remove the keyframes, and all the keyframes will be removed. Let's say we want to match the Y offset of letter F. So by activating the F node, control-click on the input that you want to match, and if it's a point control, this window will pop up. Now click the axis you want to match. Now you can see all the nodes by axis match with the active tool. Now let's try to add some value in each step for each node. As you can see, it added that value for each node when offsetting. Let's match the F-center and both button for both the axis. As you can see, I create this animation with this tool. Now let's match the size. Search the size input and Control-click on the input, and on this pop-up button, hit the Match button. As you can see, all the tool size matched with the active tool. And in that text field, you can put any value that you want to increase by each layer. Here is an animated text. Now I want all to reverse, so select the tool and hit the reverse button. As you can see, the animation reversed. Let's do it with multiple inputs. Let's reverse individual animated inputs. So Control-click the reverse button. It should list all the animated inputs. Now click on the input that you want to reverse. That only input will be reverse. And if you shift-click the reverse button, it'll reverse and copy the keyframes to the current time. Let me show you with size input only. This Unpack tool decomposes macro to group and create a macro from group. Select the macro and hit the button to decompose the macro. You can see all the nodes inside the macro. Now select any group and hit the button again to create a macro. Now I'm going to show you how to use Mirror tool. Active a tool that you want to use as controller and hit the mirror button. Now search the input that you want to mirror. In this example, I'll take the size input. Now select all the tools that will be mirrored and active one of the tool, and Control-click the button. Now search the size input and click on it. As you can see, expression has been added to the size input. Now if I change the value of the main size input, you can see the effect. Let's invert the angle input. Remember, whatever the value on the input of that time, that value will be default starting value of the mirror. Let me show you what I mean. Let's remove the angle expression and then change the angle value. You can see now if I apply the mirror effect, it has the same value. Now if I change the main input, the value will change from that value. Let's connect text angle with rectangle angle. Next, we have the Batch Insert tool. With this tool, you select the tools and click the Batch Insert button and select the node that you want to add for all the nodes, and this will add that tool for each node. Fall off. This tool helps you to control object inputs with its distance. Both tools should have center input in it. So select the controller object and hit the fall off button, and then select all the other objects with center input in it, and make one off the tool active for reference input, and then Control hit the button again, and select the input that you want to control. And a node should be created. Now on the controller, you can set the distance for how far away you want to control the input. And then the default value will be the value that when the object not in the range, this value will be set to the selected input. And the max value is what the max value should be when the object close together. Now let's move the object to see the effect. Random helps you to set the selected input to random values on that time. Let me show you how to use this. Here I have same ellipse node, and we want to randomly position the center of every ellipse. After selecting all the tools and then active a reference tool for input reference, now hit the button. It should list all the inputs you can either scroll through, or you can see as I clicked the button it auto-focused the text filed. It means you don't need to click the text field to type anything. Just type the input name. So I'm gonna search for the center input. Now click on the input and a prompt should ask for the mini and the max value. Let's just leave as it is and hit OK, as you can see that all the ellipse node position randomly on the canvas. In future, I'll add the separate mini and max values for each axis. Guide. This button helps you to toggle guide and DOD. Select any viewer and hit the button. It should show you the guide. And when you control-click any viewer, it'll toggle the DOD. This button helps you to toggle all the controllers from the viewer. Select any viewer and click the button. It should hide all the controllers from the viewer. When you again click the button, it shows all the controllers. And if you want to hide any specific tool's controller from the viewer, you can control-click the button. Should list all the available input to hide. Now we have Color Picker. You can take color from any node and paste it on many tools. This will have more feature in future. So to use this tool, select a tool that you want to copy the color from and hit the button. Then select the tools that you want to apply the color, and then control-click the button that will apply the colors to the nodes. It's not perfect, but this will help you in many situations. Delay helps you to add delay to your animated objects. Select all the tools that you want to delay and hit the button. It'll now ask how much delay you want, and other two values are start and ending range. After set the value, hit offset. Now it'll delay all the spline for each tool. Like if you have put the offset value 2, it'll offset all the spline 2 frame. You can also put negative values to offset other way. As you can see, I'm animating the center, height, and width. Again, copy pasting the tools. And remember to active a tool to get the reference animated input. Now selecting the tools, hit Control and the delay button. After clicking the button, it should list all the animated inputs. Select any of them to delay. As you can see, it's only delay the center input. Let's delay the width and height input with different values. As you can see, we're getting this kind of look. Path Snap helps you to make a polygon node with the path that object used to move. Select the animated object and hit the button, and you should see a polygon connected with the background node. As you can see, a polyline has been created with the path that the object used to move. Path Behind helps you to create an animated polyline that starts from the behind of object. As you can see, a polygon node has been created. Let's connect with the background node. Now if I play it, you can see the polyline animated from the behind. And the path front is the opposite of the path behind. Auto heading helps objects to rotate along with the path. Just select the animated object and then hit the auto heading button. As you can see, it's rotating along with the path. Let's add a trails to this object. Just selecting the object, hit the Trails button. As you can see, a nice trails has been created. In the Inspector panel, you'll have all the controls you need. Now let's see how to create new trails using the Auto Pivot tool. So as you can see my already animated object. So selecting the object, you add Auto Pivot tool. Now by selecting the Pivot tool, hit the Trails button. It should attach the trails to the pivot you selected. As you can see, it's attached to the left pivot. As you can see, there is a glitch. I couldn't figure out how to fix it. In future, it should probably fixed. Now we have a new type of trails made with particle. Select the animated object and then Control-click the Trails button. You must connect the output of the main image to Trails background input. It's for the image size, and it's only gonna output the trails, so you need to add the object as foreground. As you can see, the trails is created and seems like affected by gravity. There is lots of controls in the inspector panel for this node. Most of them are self-explanatory. Here is the interesting input. This input helps you determine the color of the particle by its lifetime. And here is another one. It's for size over life. You can control the size by the particle birth time. This section controls the force of particle. Center point helps you to add objects quickly onto the points of polygon. Create points with polygon node. And then selecting the node, hit the button. And then select the objects and active the node that you want the output from. And then hit the button again. And the object will be pointed to each point. And final node will be the main output. Now, if we apply the wiggle effect, we get this kinda look. Attach path helps you to convert the polygon polyline into path of any objects that has a center input in it. As you can see, I have created a polyline. Now selecting the polygon node, hit the button. Now select the nodes that you want to connect the polyline with the path, and then Control-click the buttons, and it should attach the polyline with the path of the object. Now you can go to the Object Modifier tab to move the object with the path. As you already have the polygon node selected, so now you can skip the part of selecting the polygon node. Just select the nodes and just Control and click the button, and the path should be applied to the center of all objects. Here are all the tools that I'm going to animate with the Trim Path tool. Let's first animate the first two ellipse node, so add one by one to the tool. After that, hit that button. As you can see, a controller node has been created. Now I can control the line with the progress input. Let's try to control all of them. So select the tool and add, and remember, order matters. I want this rectangles to start all at once, so I'll select all of them and add it to the tool. After that, hit the bake button. As you can see, I can control all the lines with this tool. You can see the dots. Those dots can be removed by the butt cap. Let me remove all the dots with the Batch Key tool. So first select a tool and select this butt cap, and then select all the tool and match the butt cap. It should remove all the dots. As you can see, all the dots has been removed, and all the thing working perfectly. As you can see, all the capsule type shapes starting all at once because I select them all at once. Let's add some random line with some polygon node for the next example. So Control-click the Trim Path button. And here is the mini and max value for randomness. Like it will animate the polygons based on this times. Selecting all the nodes, hit the Bake button, and it should add the effect. You can add as many times as you want. You can add the right on effect at any point of time. Just select all the node and hit the button. Here is some animated object moving with different speed, and if you want to move them in the same speed, you can use this tool. Select all the node that you want to move all at once, and remember that selected tool needs to have center input in it, and then hit the button, and you will get a controller to move all the object. You can animate it and do whatever you want. So here is an animated ellipse node, and it's moving with different speed in different times. So this tool will help you to average the speed of the tool. Let's copy-paste the tool. That will help you to see the before and after. So we will use this tool on the red ellipse. Now select the animated object and Control-press the button. As you can see, guys, the object is now moving in same speed. The black ellipse is before, and the red one after the tool applied. And here is an example of before animated with duplicate node with time offset. And here is an example of after animated with duplicate node with time offset. On center helps you to reset the center to the center of the points. So you can see I'm adding point to the left of the center. Now if I hit the button with the node selected, you can see it adds the center based on the average point of the polygon points. This also works with the spline node. Here I have some ellipse node to show you how to use the lines tools. Select all the tools that you want to connect with the line, and then go to the Lines tab, and select any type of line you want to apply. As you can see, a line node has been created. Let's use it as the background. You can see all the ellipse has been connected to the line. Let's apply the wiggle modifier to the ellipse nodes. As you can see, it's working perfectly. In the inspector panel, you can see there is lots of controls. Let's see the other line tool. Line tool 3 connects with every objects. Line 4 helps you to connect one object to many objects. Select all the tool and active the tool that you want to connect all the object and hit the button. Dashed line helps you to create the dashed line. Long shadow helps you to add long shadow, and the inputs are pretty self-explanatory. Only thing I want to show you is the light source, as the light source is pretty far from the canvas, so it's my responsibility to show you guys that this exists. Light warp helps you to wrap light around the object. So to use this tool, you need to add your object as background and light as foreground. As you can see how the light is affecting the object, and you can change various settings in the inspector panel. Light swap helps you to add light swap in your object. Just attach any transparent image and then connect the light swap node, and you can do all sort of stuff in the inspector panel. Now we have a pretty interesting tool, Gride. Here you can see a door-like composition. Now I'm gonna open the door with Gride. So let's attach a Gride. Next, connect the mask as a foreground that you want to cut. In our case, we already have a rectangle mask we can use. So let's just copy-paste the mask, or you could also directly connect the mask to the foreground. For simplicity, we just copy-paste and use it. Connect the mask as the foreground of Gride. Now move the pivot X from where you want to open the door. Now let's rotate Y rotation. As you can see, the light is coming when the door opening, and also how the door affecting by the light. Now, if you want to put an object behind the door, just connect the next input with that object output. As you can see, the light also affecting the object. You can all control in the inspector panel to how much or how you want to wrap the light to the object. You can also move the object and the object going to cut by the door. Let's put text as the object. As the text is white, we can't see the text, so we need to change the color. Now you can see the text, but the light is warped so much. You can control the warping in the Gride node. Let me show you a real-life example. Here is the door I'm going to open. Here is the texture that I'm going to apply as the background. I'll turn this small image to an infinite texture with my texture node. Now let's add a man behind the door. Rim light, try to simulate 2D bevel. It's still in the early stage. I'll try to improve as much as possible. Outer glow, add glow to the edge of the object, and you can control many things in the inspector panel. Next, we have inner glow. Extrude Light helps you to stretch the masked area. Just attach the Extrude Light to any image node, and then add a mask like polygon or something. Then you need to increase the X or Y value to see the effect. Burst helps you to add nice burst effect. Just animate the progress input to get the effect. Lines lets you create beautiful backgrounds with it. First, connect a background to the line's background input. Fast forwarding cause all the inputs are self-explanatory. White border lets you add border around your object. Pixel Stretcher helps you to add stretch effect to your object, connect any image or object to the node, and move the left and right controller. And the middle controller helps you to set the position from where the pixel will be stretched. As you can see, the man cutting from the screen caused the canvas size of that image not same as the background. We will add a transparent background and then apply the effect. Now you can see this works fine. In future, I'll add the vertical one too. Grid lets you create grid more easily, and there is so many features like time offset on X and Y axis. Plug a background for image size to the grid background input. Now you can see a grid has created. This node also little heavy, but you know my laptop isn't great, so I leave this up to you guys what you think. Gride lets you create grid with any object. Just click the grid button, and then connect the object with it. As you can see, text are so close together, you can fix all of this in the inspector panel. There is various time offset features you can use. This so heavy, so I'll make a video about it later. Auto border helps you to add border around your object. And this also use the DoD, so if you having any issue adding the border to your object, you can always add the auto domain node before the node to fix the issue. Auto mask create a mask around the object, so you can quickly mask the object. This outline tool creates an outline based on the color of the edge of the image. Now let me show you how to use the splash tool. So here's an object that I animated, and remember only the center input will support the splash tool. Now select the animated object and then hit the splash button. Now a node should be created. Now you have to connect the object background with the output of the main object. Now you can only see the splash, so connect the main tool as foreground. Now you can see the splash following the object. Let me show you what it looks like if I apply the outer glow to the splash. Let's talk about some features. In the next update, it should came with many features. Now there's basic features like color over life and the size over life you can play and some particle customization. Here is some texture. As you can see, they are pretty small. Now with my XTexture node, you can put this texture to any object. Just connect the object to the XTexture node background input and texture to the foreground input. Now you can see the texture applied to the object and all the controllers in the inspector panel. Let me show you with other textures. Stop motion tool helps you to create stop motion effect. You just have to set the frame value. Animo helps you to control any animation before the node and the selected frame. So by default, it will set the time value to the current time. And with the progress, you can control the time before the time that you set. Hover helps you to move your object up and down. It can create really nice floating effect. Bake helps you to create keyframe based on the expression or keyframe. You can select the node and click the Bake button. Now all the expression and keyframed input will be listed. Now select the input, and for expression the end time will be the render end time. You can now set how many frames you want to add keyframe. You can also set the start time. And the bottom one is step to set skip frames for each iteration. So now I want to bake only 25 frames from the start and set step to 1. Now hit the Bake button. As you can see, it added the keyframes as I wanted, and the animation is based on the expression. You can also do it with the keyframed input. In this case, the bake end will be set to the selected input last keyframe time. As you can see, the bake end set to the 25 cause the size input last keyframe is 25. Svg Exporter just converts the viewer image to a SVG file. Just select the viewer and then pick a name and save where you want to save. It'll just export the SVG of that image. Here you can see. You can also try with any image file, but without a good outline, the result is going to be horrible. QR code helps you to make barcode. Hit the button and type the name that you want to generate as barcode and then hit OK. Your barcode should load into the flow. Thumb Grabber helps you to add the thumbnail of your YouTube link. Just copy past the video link. It should put a loader with the thumbnail in it. These buttons are the sizes. This alignment tool only support text, ellipse, and rect tool, and some of my shape tool. There is some problem, so I didn't add the other alignment tool like vertical and the distribution tool. Now select and active the tool that you want to align with. And now select all of them and hit the Align button. Now it should align with the selected two with selected side. Node Helper helps you to quickly manage the selected node. Select and active any node, and then hit the button. First 2 button for horizontal and vertical alignment button. And second 2 button invert the position of the node vertically and horizontally. Gif Importer helps you to import the GIF to Edit page. Hit the Gif Importer button and then select the GIF, and then it'll convert the GIF into video and import the video file, then you can use it. Let me show you what the Text Tools does. It's not for to use one node. This is useful when there is many text node. If you control and click the vertical button, it'll remove all the line and put all the text to one line. And this highlighted tools, if you control press them, that will add keyframe to the input. And before one frame, it'll add another keyframe with the value it has before. Text Breaker helps you to break text into individual character. It's only working on single line for now. Text Path helps you to attach text to any polyline. So to use this tool, first select the polygon node with the shape created in it, and then hit the button, and then select the text node, and then hit the button again. A controller should be created. Now you can move the text along with the path with the progress input.